What happens in the US impacts Canada. Like it or not, admit it or not. If something is popular right now in the US, it's probably going to make its way north and be popular in Canada very soon. Music trends, social media trends, social influence. So why should political or social movements be any different? I'm talking specifically in this video about DEI positions and DEI initiatives, and we're going to get into it. Unless you've been living under a rock the past few years, you would have heard the term DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. But why has this term, once about fairness and opportunity, become so divisive? They're all great words with great meanings on their own, but as a collective, the term DEI has become politicized, weaponized even, similar to the term woke and how it was originally used. This video isn't a history lesson. Let's just get right into it, okay? And the elephant in the room here is that Trump has officially declared DEI dead. Trump didn't campaign saying one thing about DEI and then do a 180 when he was elected. He made his thoughts very well known during the elections, and so did millions of other Americans. But the truth is, DEI initiatives, they've been on the chopping block for months now. And this isn't just my opinion. This is happening right across the board, and not just small mom and pop type of shops. I'm talking about multi-million-dollar organizations all over the country, all over North America. The reason is money, directly related to customers being pissed off by something that the organization has done, related to DEI, okay? Something they've implemented. Next thing you know, the customer, they voice their opinion online, which, as you know, can have a snowball effect. Now you got, an online organized movement of people saying that they're going to stop buying your product, stop using a product, encouraging others not to buy or use a product or not to go and see that movie. The company receives bad press. They lose customers. And before you know it, they're in damage control, full damage control mode. The president, the CEO, the ED, they apologize or they step down and all is good. Forgiven. Sometimes the damage control to the organization is them publicly stating that they're getting rid of all DEI initiatives, firing the person that came up with the idea, and moving forward, they're going to be focusing on getting back to what the customers want, okay? Making drinks, building farm supplies, and staying away from social issues completely, not even donating to social causes. There's a very popular saying out there, which you may have heard, and it's somewhat tied to this. Go woke, go broke. The thing is, or you could even say the problem is, these concentrated online campaigns to raise awareness and try to completely destroy an organization's bottom line, they work. And the people in charge, they're scared to death of being added to the hit list. So they've dropped some DEI mandates, both internally and externally. Some people are being laid off. In some cases, entire DEI departments have been let go. To be fair, not all DEI initiatives have been failures. Some companies have implemented different policies and procedures that have strengthened their teams and boosted morale, and that's a good thing. The issue is that these successes are usually overshadowed by all the loud online failures. And not every organization is getting rid of DEI initiatives either. Some of them are doubling down. They're making public statements saying that they're not going to be bullied into submission, which is also very admirable. There was something in the media recently, this morning actually, about Costco on this exact issue. I think it received some extra attention because other big organizations like Target and Walmart, they're switching gears and getting rid of DEI initiatives. I have a feeling that a lot of organizations out there, they're going to be keeping the DEI positions, but just changing the names. But companies were shutting down DEI projects long before this announcement from Trump on both sides of the border, Canada and the US. I think in some cases, just so a company can kind of save face and not look like the bad person, they're just not extending DEI position contracts. So if a DEI titled position, such as a DEI compliance officer, if their 2 or 3 year contract is up, they just don't renew it. Maybe they say they reached their goals or the funding was cut, or they're not even required to say anything at all in many cases. It looks a lot better than, just taking somebody into the room and laying them off face to face. They just want to avoid that. The positions, DEI positions, they were implemented just a few years ago for many different reasons. But the term came on fast and strong. And organizations didn't want to get caught left behind. They didn't want to be blindsided. So they hopped on board. There was a hiring spree. Entirely new positions and departments were created that never existed before. And most of the time, Listen, there was nothing nefarious about it. There wasn't any agenda. Organizations genuinely wanted to make sure that they were being fair and had the best interests of not just their employees, but their customers as well. They were mandated to get these positions, mandated by the board, the shareholders. In many cases, it's now the shareholders or the board doing all they can to eliminate these DEI positions or policies from the organization. There is another issue, though. There were some people who were hired, or entire teams that were hired, depending on the size of the organization, who had a mandate to include a DEI lens in every part of the organization. And again, that's not necessarily a negative thing. A DEI lens, meaning looking at decisions through the perspective of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Like asking if a hiring policy is fair or if advertising reflects your audience, okay? Again, not a bad thing. This was introduced in every department: finance, HR, marketing, business operations, public government relations. And the individuals in charge of these different departments basically had no say at all. DEI initiatives were mandated, and they didn't want to be the ones pushing back. So they just sat back. The problem with that was a lot of the DEI hires may have been well-educated and well-meaning, but they didn't have experience or formal training in some of the departments that they were working in. But they were treated as if anything they said had to be, not just taken into consideration, but it had to be implemented. And that caused a lot of problems. Again, the department head, they didn't want to be seen as a person standing in the way of DEI. Nobody did. So decisions were made, campaigns were executed, and some organizations lost millions or even billions. But I need to bring this back to Canada. Like I mentioned earlier, what happens in the US usually ends up happening in Canada, okay? And don't forget that a lot of the parent companies of the organizations in Canada, large and small, they're located in the US. Major companies, not small. So why would they get rid of a DEI position in the US, which also comes at a cost, but then decide to keep them in Canada? As someone with their ear to the ground, I have many years' experience in both the public sector and the private sector, including 5 years as Human Rights Commissioner. I can tell you, these conversations are being had everywhere. So is DEI dying in Canada? Or maybe it's already dead. The trends are pretty hard to ignore. The economic pressures and the cultural shifts influencing these decisions, they're not just confined to one border. Companies are facing tough choices. They're balancing financial realities with social expectations, responsibilities, and many are just taking a step back, or they're stepping away completely. Whether or not this marks the end of an era or just a passing phase, nobody knows. It remains to be seen. But one thing is clear, this conversation is not over. We're having one election where I live coming up very soon, and another one federally, so right across the country shortly after. And it could be any time. Canada is being bombarded, and it really seems like nobody's at the helm sometimes. Canada needs to decide what DEI truly means. And that means you have to decide what it really means. You should see some of the conversations being had online right now about DEI in Canada. I say it all the time in my videos. Politicians are paying attention, and it's up to you to make your voice heard. Online forums, chat groups. I have politicians from all different levels of government who follow me and pay attention to some of my videos. So even here, podcasts and other less traditional forms of media, that's what mattered this past US election, okay? And the same goes for up here in Canada. Be heard. Is DEI worth fighting for? Or is it worth fighting for in its current form? Or does it need to evolve into something sustainable, something effective? Do you think DEI is dead in Canada, or is it just evolving? Let me know in the comments, okay? I would love to hear your perspective. What happens when police pull you over anyways? What takes them so long to come to your car? What information can they find out about you from the plate, from the registered owner of the vehicle, from your driver's license? Can they see your criminal history? Can they tell things about your family? What takes them so long to get back to you after they give you a ticket? I made a video about this, and I take you through all the steps. It's quite interesting. Maybe check it out. I'll link it up here. Thank you very much for watching this video, okay? Be safe out there. Look after one another, and perhaps we will see you again.